Welcome to the Football 360 show. It is Tuesday. That means it's time for the fastest hour of football talk on the planet. I am JP Rock. He is Matt Bierman. Football 360 show is coming at you live on X as well as YouTube. And of course, you can catch all things Football 360 at football360show.com. And the audio versions are on Apple as well as Spotify. Us and Joe Rogan, correct, Mr. Bierman?
Just like Joe Rogan.
Just like Joe Rogan.
Just like Joe.
That's how we want to be. So how's it going, man? What's up?
It's going great. Just middle of the summer, man. It's starting to grind. So
yeah, a little bit. There's stuff every day, and we were just talking on my phone. It's always blowing up. Like, you're gonna be here, you're gonna be there. I'm trying. I'm
Yeah,
because we get out and about.
There's a lot of 7-on-7s going on. Team camps,
joint practices. That was a really nice joint practice last week. CBC and Cardinal Ritter.
Yeah, a lot of talent on the field.
A lot of talent on the field, a lot of talent that's going to be on the field, once the transfer, rules are approved, once the transfers are approved.
Yeah. That's an interesting topic to talk about. I mean, I know that there's a lot of feelings about transferring and what, families should do and shouldn't do. And it is interesting. You see so many times where there's kids that transfer and the school is a recipient of transfers, and then when someone leaves, they're not as friendly when someone leaves. So I always find that very interesting.
Yeah, that bothers me to no end, because you're talking about, a young man and his family making a decision that they feel is best for them. And in my opinion, if you want to hold that up, you want to try to affect some young person's life. I mean, that's pretty petty. And it's like anything else in life, whether it's a business partner, whether it's just your wife, your girlfriend. If they don't want to be there with you, let them go.
Well, sometimes the situations have changed, right? It
things change.
But the Misha rules and all of that are really interesting as well, because you see some guys, it does not seem fair across the board when there's eligibility and there's kids sitting out and you see one, a similar.
You mean it's arbitrary?
Yeah, it's not like you see so many kids over the years that you're like, wow, that guy's ineligible.
Right.
I know another guy had the same situation. He's eligible. So I do know there's a lot of nuances to it. And
well, my biggest beef is when there's a coach who specifically it's blacklisting a kid, right, and will not approve their transfer out. And I mean, I've seen it where kids try to go from a public school in St. Charles County to a private Catholic school in the city. And I mean, what's the problem there? What's the holdup? What would be the reasoning behind that?
So what I would warn against is in this day and age where there's a lot more visibility to things, and the NCAA just got caught. We've been talking for weeks about it. The NCAA got caught. I mean, I talked about an instance where, for years they would not allow kids to transfer from school to school without penalty. And now we're seeing the other end of it, where it's, you can transfer as much as you want. And what's happened is that is a direct response to all the years that the NCAA was totalitarian, and they just ruled with an iron fist, and they allowed coaches to say, well, yeah, that's okay. I can get transfers in, or I can go get JUCO guys. But if you want to leave Kansas State and go to Minnesota State, a D2, in your senior year, even though you should be eligible, I'm gonna make sure that you are punished for leaving me.
That's the whole.
Oh, by the way, I didn't recruit you. Someone else recruited you. That's the type of stuff
you anyway.
That was the stuff that was happening. And so, when you start talking about like arbitrary, belief or interpretation of rules or enforcement of
the rules, yeah.
When it snaps back, and there will be lawyers, I'm sure, that eventually get involved. That's going to snap back to a point where people are like, hey, wait, why are we doing it this way? And we always did it that way. It'll be very unrecognizable, just like the NCAA transfer portal is. Oh, you get one transfer. Nope, the courts ruled you get an unlimited transfer. So I would suspect within the next number of years, I don't know how many, there will be a very similar approach across the country as it stands to eligibility rules. I mean, Florida has a much more liberal transfer policy within a county, and where you live. You can't just go somewhere just because you want to go there. But if you live within a geographic region and part of that tax base, you can transfer to those schools, and you can
It's like that in
transfer. You
Springfield.
could transfer in season.
Yeah.
And
Really?
be eligible. Oh yeah,
Okay, that's nice.
yeah. That's one of the
I could see where that could get a little iffy.
little tough in season. I don't know what the exact dates are, but yeah, I do know that can occur in Florida. So, but you know,
You have to be smart as a parent. If you're, this is why you really have to be discerning and do your research and look at the school that your kid's going to go to and evaluate what the importance of football is versus the academics, it's the social and all that. Because I see kids and they want to wait until their senior year to transfer, and it's like, I don't know what to tell you. You're really up against it. You might not be eligible, and at that point, what are you doing? So
we've seen it happen.
I see it happen, and I'm not in favor one way or the other. Outside of, you really got to do your homework. What's the best fit for you?
But a lot of it can be avoided, right?
Yes,
just by virtue of pre-planning. But the problem is, coming out of 8th grade, you're not really thinking. Most parents are not thinking, hey, my child is going to be absolutely in love with football. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of people that make those decisions based on their kid loving football coming out of middle school that end up like falling off because they make bad choices, because they're not involved with the right friend groups. And then suddenly football, by the time they're a junior or seniors, like kind of on the back burner, like they're doing it part-time and enjoying the game, but they're certainly enjoying other things about life and not football. So, and that's not setting them up to, be a guy that's a major player.
You see the 8th grade all-stars get their attention. You know what I mean? Hey, come tour our school, come do this, come that. So it starts early, but it's tough as a parent, because you really have to know what's going on and have a little bit of a crystal ball to be able to see what's coming down the pike and do the research, know who's on the team, know where your child's going to be. I mean, there's some teams, man, and they're almost like Alabama locally as far as the talent that they have stockpiled at particular positions.
Yeah.
And one of them is just, and luckily I saw where Kendrick Lyons over at East St. Louis just picked up an offer, right? Was at Granite City. Now he's at East Side.
Yep.
You also have Jason Wiley there, who's doing really well. And, sources tell me that he's right now QB1, such as it is. There's no real definition because it's a competition.
Yeah.
But you have him, you have Kendrick Lyons, and then you have Reese Shanklin. Right, all three are college caliber quarterbacks.
Yeah,
and
they're all on the same team, and then you go watch other jamborees. There's no quarterback on a
bingo
team.
And on top of that, East St. Louis has possibly the top 8th grade quarterback in Illinois coming in Jadon Wilson.
Yeah,
who is a all-star quarterback, I think, with the Junior Flyers, and so it's like, man, good luck.
Yep.
It's a luxury for the team and the coaches, but it's really tough. Or just like, I saw CBC, and man, they got some tight ends at CBC.
Yes. And so does DeSmet.
So oh my gosh,
it's crazy.
The
emergence of tight ends.
The emergence of tight ends. It's like, how many can you play at one time?
Speaking of which, big offer for a junior or a rising sophomore tight end, not even a junior, sophomore, Jack Brown. Francis House Central getting the Illinois offer. That's a big offer. You're coming into your sophomore year and you have a Big Ten offer that can play big in your career, right? Like in your trajectory, if you will, in recruiting. That's a big offer for sure. But yeah, I it's tough when you start to kind of like feel like, and there are a lot of kids that just are looking for better opportunities, not necessarily because they want to be college football stars, but they're looking for a better opportunity to play, and maybe the school that they went to is not perfect for them. And I'm a proponent of the eligibility standards, right, and people moving and all of that. But I've seen situations where we had a young man last year who moved, let's say from the Lake of the Ozarks region to like 40-50 miles away, and was being told that they weren't eligible because their house did not sell.
Oh yeah.
And so, where I have a real problem is if a family decides to make the move, like, they physically make a move, what rule in what world do we live in where Misha, really a non-revenue generating entity, right? It's a nonprofit, quasi state entity. I mean, that really is just given, it's created by an activities association. It's just an association, right? Which is much needed to enforce rules and all of that. But to have rules based around someone has to sell their home, like it's and both parents have to move and all these different rules, like at some point you have to imagine that's going to get challenged, right? It has been challenged, but the world we live in now, there's much more transparency and people are more awake to different, things that are like before it was like, oh, it's just the way it is. And I just, when you see something like that, like, oh, they didn't move. Well, whose business is it if they want to own 3 houses, right? Like if they're paying taxes or they've moved and they can no longer physically go to that school because they live somewhere else, what business is it is Misha if you own 2 or 3 houses, right? Whether one's a rental. I mean, if someone owns a house at the Lake of the Ozarks, why would you want to let go of that? Can you not rent it? Like whose business is that? So things like that become really, really frustrating. And then kids lose 2, 3, 4, 5 games out of their season because of that. I mean, adults getting in the way of kids playing. I understand you're breaking the rules, different story, right? If there's nuances to it and they have no ability, and they do these hearings right when the season starts, by on purpose, I know, but it's really difficult to understand. Like, why can't they get it done during the summer and have a ruling so everybody knows what they're doing? Because it really hinders a team. Because if the team has this kid practicing all year with them and they're in limbo, like, why would they not want to know if the kid's going to be able to play this at the end of the summer or not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, is that not just? I mean,
and there's a bunch of that, and they have to wait, and they have to wait, and it does drag into the season.
100%
on some kids.
No, they do the ruling or their appeals starting in, I think it's in the week of right when they get back from the dead week, right before the season, a week or 2 before the season starts.
Yeah,
and then they have an appeal process that runs up through the middle part of the season. And so, again, I'm no expert in it, but I have certainly seen where kids get eligible and you just scratch your head and you're like, oh, okay, I guess no one fought it or it just kind of slid through. Okay. And then on the flip side, you see someone do it the right way and then suddenly they're ineligible, right? And they lose a year. And, that doesn't sound like much, but, someone playing JV football versus varsity football, if they have aspirations of playing at the next level, that can hinder them. And then, before this was just hindering them going to college. Now, and that's where I see the lawsuits coming in more in play. There's a potential where that person, it could be costing them money, right? And so, it sounds far-fetched, but we have kids that are in our area that are getting ready to go to college next year or just recently went to college that are making more money than most adults bring in their household, right?
It's crazy.
For a single year. There's kids making
that's another
$150,000 to $500,000 coming out of high school per season.
$600,000. It's crazy. And the more, we're really into football season, and the more you find out and hear from coaches, college coaches and play, it's insane the money that's just flying around there. And that can't be good. And I mean, the game's just changed so much. I mean, I had somebody text me and they're like, hey, we met this GM of a college. You're like, what? I've never heard of a GM of a college before.
Yeah, I know a couple.
Explaining. Oh yeah,
it's crazy. Like,
it's pro ball.
It's
pro ball, baby.
If you don't think that that's what's coming, and you can't read the tea leaves, we've been talking about it since last September.
Yep.
It's coming, right? And I think we had a negative comment on one of the things where guys like, it's not professional football.
Yeah, I don't know what
he was like very disrespectful. He took offense because in his mind the only professional football is the NFL.
Right.
But if you look at the market that the NCAA has, especially the Power Four, they're going to be bigger than the NFL as far as the numbers of teams and reach, right?
Without a doubt.
Regional across the country.
The money
is going to be significant. And the value is going to be, driven at the school level. I mean, you have private equity firms talking about investing in these universities, like openly floating the idea, like of hey, if we invested in University of Michigan, it would be worth $1 billion to us.
So we're going to have the Wells Fargo Michigan Wolverines
Well,
one day.
yeah, I mean that's a real possibility. But I've also heard, I don't know if we talked about this, but like the Big 12 may not be called the Big 12 anymore. It's going to have a sponsorship, right?
Yes.
And there's also now they're allowed to put sponsors on the field, right? One of the main beefs of like the guys that are in the private equity from the articles I've read is they see this as a really great opportunity because truthfully it's an underperforming asset because the NCAA, those power 4, previously power 5 was doing like $3.3 billion a year in revenue, right? And so, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's worth 10x, $30 billion in revenue if they manage it properly and they execute like they should, and they manage it as a business rather than something that the school does. And so, that brings us to another point because, like, there's going to be unintended consequences if this new law goes into place and they start paying, not law but the new judgment, if you will, goes into place and they're starting to pay the student athletes through the schools, which then has major implications on Title IX, has major implications on non-revenue generating sports, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it all shakes out. So I won't say the school because I don't know all the details, but a guy told me in pretty good confidence that a major Midwestern school was in the middle of building a new wrestling facility, and they halted it. And there was a major multi-million-dollar investment, and they halted it because what he was told is that there's a belief that they may be switching to be a club sport.
There we
which
go.
would be shocking, right? Because there's all this history.
Yep.
But you look locally, Lindenwood University made the transition to Division I, and they prided themselves of having some of the most, offerings for athletics, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that as they start going down this pipeline of this pathway of hey, we got Division I football, there's new costs that are, cost structures involved. There's different things that are taking place on a daily basis from an expenditure standpoint that they didn't have before, and it just made sense to probably clip some of those sports that were not generating revenue. And so at some point the universities will probably go down, some of them will go down that path, and you've alluded to it. I mean, at the lower levels of football, like the D2s and down, they may, there may be a situation where they are gone. And they're also, though, the one nice thing is, I think, with like NAIA and like say D2 and D3 is they are part of that school's ecosystem from a financial perspective, because like if you look at a school at like Missouri Baptist, they have 80% of their student athletes of their students are student athletes. So you have that many kids that are there. Like, why are they at college or why are they in university? They're there to play sports and to get a degree, right? But the lure to get them in is what? Sports. So I think that model works for them. So, and it kind of, works as well for the D2s, because the vast majority, a lot of these smaller schools, if you look at the student body, a high representation of student athletes. And so, there's a whole host of reasons why that works, with financial aid, Pell Grants, things like that the school gets, and helps fund each one of those athletes that's coming in. So like they're not a direct spend like at Mizzou, like they have to cover all those scholarships, right? They have enough money to do it, but somebody foots the bill. The Tiger Scholarship Foundation, writes the check for, paying for those students to be at the school, because you have to cover them by rule. But yeah, I think there is a lot of moving parts.
There are, and taking it back to what you were talking about, where somebody's going to make a legal challenge about allowing their kid to transfer in high school. The more business that college football becomes, then you're talking about, well, they can sue and say, well, you're denying our absolutely denying our opportunity for employment, for future employment, for making money. That's
therein huge. Lies what's going to happen. Someone is going to go down that path, and they've done it over religious freedom in the past. Like there's past precedent where people have sued like over 14th Amendment rights it went to the Supreme Court in Missouri, and Misha got beat. It was a federal court, not Supreme Court, federal court. and they got beat, and it was over 14th Amendment rights, and saying, hey, how would your rule supersede the Constitution?
Yeah.
Right. And so we've talked about this in the past. So much of what's happening with the NCAA is around the antitrust component, and there's this free flow of money and commerce, right? And so once you start to interrupt and disrupt commerce, the federal government's really good at protecting those involved, because why? I mean, what's their interest in it? Well, it's how they make. That's how they exist. They need money and capital to flow in and out, because they are able to then make money off of that. So, and that's how they operate.
Yeah.
So, I think
so. It could go really deep.
It's going to go deep, because I do think, and I think if we would have said what we just said 2 years ago, we would have been called nut jobs, kooks, idiots,
theorists.
And so the funny thing is there's going to be people that hear what we just talked about, and they're going to still think that.
Oh yeah. Oh,
but they don't understand. Like on a daily basis, I am having conversations. You're having conversations. I mean, I'm talking with colleges. I've talked to guys in the NIL side of things. I've talked with guys that are recipients of literally millions of dollars to play college football, right?
Yeah.
And understand how it works.
It's crazy,
because we're having those conversations, and it's not a pipe dream. It's actually happening. Right. So as the universities start to spend money themselves on the student athletes, as they should have a long time ago, this is how they got themselves in this situation. But as they spend that, it's going to become even more legitimized, right? Right now, it's like, oh, it's NIL, but those are hard dollars that spend, right? Those are things that can change somebody's life, right? If they manage their money the right way. So I do think in due time we're going to see a seismic shift, and in Missouri, locally, there's a lot of talk about school choice, and there's things in that nature. If that ever goes through, then I cannot see any sort of issue. But you'll see, even like locally, like there's districts that have district choice, like school choice within a district.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never seen like a kid going from a, let's just say Parkway South to Parkway North. I've not seen that be blocked because it's inter-district, right?
Yeah.
But why is that any different? They're going from one school to another. But that's probably a caveat that was carved out, or the school district doesn't fight it, maybe because it's internal. But yeah, so I do think, but there's also situations where the school may know, like, hey, this is a better fit at this school. Like something happened, or, oh, by the way, that, Johnny or Jimmy doesn't like this group of people and had issues.
Mm-hmm.
We're better off just starting over fresh somewhere else. But then why would we take away their extracurricular activities? I mean, they don't make them sit on and band, for all I know, if they change schools. Like, why are the rules different?
Right.
The choir, if you transfer schools and you're in a choir, do you have to sit out a year?
Yeah.
I mean, like but they treat the activities as equal, right? So like it is Missouri State Athletic and Activities Association. It's, the activities and the athletics are together, right? So I do think it's interesting, like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you do have to sit out marching band or cheer.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. If you don't, my question is why are you putting more weight in an athletic endeavor than you would an activity, right?
Yep. You're absolutely right. And I mean, but once all the transfers are approved, man, there's going to be some interesting teams and some interesting new guys that people are going to see across the state, much less just locally in St. Louis. And I saw it, and I mean, and I'm seeing guys who are coming in from out of state who I saw on some teams, and it's like, oh, if that sticks and all that works out, then that player is going to be a prospect that's going to be, named amongst the top guys locally, or in the state. And it's just a fascinating subject. But back to the actual product on the field. I know you were at the East Central camp.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you at? I never ran
to watch. I had to.
Were you up in the press box?
I was in the stands just watching. I
figured you were in the press box in the air conditioning. Just
no.
Chill.
I probably watched the first hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it's good to see. I mean, it's definitely early season.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely there's a lot of improvement to be made, right? But then you can see. Yeah. Again, the guys that are training, that have done stuff in the off season, look different than the kids that just trotted out 2 weeks ago to come to football practice.
Without a doubt.
It is there was 2 Division I quarterbers.
I was just writing a report on
And it
those
was
Division
so-
I
it was
quarterbacks.
it
So
was
obvious.
so obvious.
Right. And it's
So
like,
obvious.
and so I'm writing it on, I mean, we're talking about Brett Ottensmeyer at Parkway West and Hoyt Gregory. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to write the exact same thing, but I mean, they're your
Yeah.
quarterbacks. And so you see the exact same, characteristics
Yeah,
from them, the exact same thing. It's, I mean, their technique, their footwork, their delivery, their throwing motion. Your guys are just so easily identifiable.
and and it's so you feel bad for the teams that don't have a guy like that because and not to say that they're not going to make mistakes and have bad plays, but I would just sitting up in the stands, there's a group going to the right and a group going to the left, and you watch a guy, let's just say not throw a ball very mechanically sound and it kind of fall dead in the middle of the defense, and you're like, oh boy. And then you look over and watch a kid drive a ball 15 yards on a dig, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so it's tough because like it takes a lot of work. Yes, they have natural proclivity to throw a football. That helps a lot.
Right.
But you can come in and you can watch. The process starts young, and these little guys, and I can start naming names from kids in 2nd grade, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade that have a really good, pathway. And then I can tell you who those middle schoolers are. Like right now, we have a group of kids that are rising.
You have a
graders.
really, really great
Stacked.
group.
I mean,
7th
it's
and 8th grade. Oh
It's
yeah.
stacked. And so what's really cool about it is they kind of assume that role when they go to those schools. So, but again, back to our earlier discussion, you need to make sure you're going to the right place. Like you don't want to,
100%.
like I have a kid going into 8th grade next year, and
That's going to be interesting.
well, like
How that
his
works out.
school that he's going to go to is awesome, right? The public school.
Mhm.
But the issue becomes is like, okay, like, are the coaches still going to be there, right? Those are considerations. Do you know if they're still going to be there when your child is going to be a sophomore,
Who else is he going to be around?
junior, or senior?
Yeah. Who else
right?
is going to
What other players are going there?
be built around him? Yeah.
Those are things you're considered. Those are things that I have certainly looked at, right? Those are things that I'm looking at because, he only has 4 years to play high school football, right? There's no red shirting. There's no COVID year. There's no extra time. And so you want to go in and you want to put your best foot forward. And it's also, yes, obviously, where are his friends at? How much fun is he having in school? Is he locked into school? All those things.
That's not necessarily the best reason to pick a
Well,
school.
no, meaning,
I know, but I see kids do that, and I talk to parents, and they're like, "Oh yeah,
you made a
they're
mistake there. Yeah.
that's a mistake." Yep.
Well, and it's also like where is he a good fit academically, right?
Right.
Like is he a scholar? Is he going to struggle to get through? I mean, because truthfully, we have so many great public schools and private schools.
Yes.
There are some schools though where I have seen kids go, and let's just say they're average students, right, or
Mhm.
above average, but they're in an elite level private school where they are competing with kids.
Yeah.
Like kind of like going to a Harvard or Yale,
Right,
where
right.
you're a student athlete competing against guys that are there, to be doctors and lawyers and engineers,
Right.
and they're like they have all day to commit to class and
Yes.
school, and you have a limited amount of time because you've been at practice all day. So, like taken that in consideration is really important, and then kind of projecting, like, hey, where am I going to be as a sophomore? Does it look good for me as a sophomore? That is a quarterback. That's a really big consideration, right?
Right.
What does it look like when I'm a junior and senior? And so, is there a guy that's 1 year older than me, like that's pretty darn good, that's going to have a year on me?
Are there 3 guys? Is there a guy in every class that's
Right. And
You know?
so, like, at some point, somebody's feelings are going to get hurt. And
Yeah.
so you got to look at that. You got to take consideration to it, because if you don't, you turn around when you're going to be a junior or senior and go, uh-oh, like, this is not good. And unfortunately,
I'm thinking of transferring?
and we hear it all the time. So you can kind of like, and again, you can't avoid all of it because some
Yeah.
things do change. And
You're
that's
gonna
life.
face competition,
That's life.
yep.
And you're going to face competition 100%. But you also want to be on the field, because what we know is your odds go up the better your game film is. If you don't have great game film, then it's tough.
And
It's a tough
especially in
sell.
today's environment with the transfer portal and the extra years and stuff like that, it's become even tougher. So you really have to start making those decisions and figuring it out earlier than you may have had to in years past. A couple other guys who you've worked with on varying levels a little bit. Jonathan Moore, Luther North,
Yeah, look great.
looked great, looked phenomenal. Just so advanced as far as his ability to run the team and his decision making.
He's big too.
He's big.
He
He's
does not look
six-
like a sophomore.
No, he's 6'2",
Super nice guy.
right?
Super good
At-
kid.
At elite combine, he was 6'2",
Mhm.
fast. Already has like a 34, 35-inch vertical.
Mhm.
So he's a true dual threat guy, and he was making the right
He's making
reads.
good plays.
Yeah, making and that flex bone they're doing is fun to watch. And man, they got a stable of running backs.
Yes.
There's just including a big guy who's moved to running back. I didn't see him play running back last year. It was more of like a tight end, a DN, still playing DN. But so they've got the
They have a big line,
the
too.
Lightning and Thunder, yeah, and they got a big line. It's young, but what's interesting about them, they're really young still. They played all those freshmen. Lonnie Johnson and DJ and Jonathan, in fact, and James Booby Bryant, all those guys are just big time talents. And they were even missing a couple of guys who weren't there.
It is funny. Like there's like you can see every team is missing 2 to 3 kids, which I'm sure is really frustrating the coaches. But you will say like a part of the deal is like when you're trying to get other athletes to come out and play, there is a give and take, right? Because you have a kid that's like an all-star basketball player or lacrosse player that's got to go to a showcase that's like big for their game. You know what I mean? Like they have a whatever a showcase tournament, which is big in lacrosse, and I know it's big this time of year for AAU basketball. So like it's a give and take for those guys. But then the problem is you also have the guy that's going to play B-level baseball and chasing it still, right? And like.
Plus, you get family vacations.
That happens a ton, right?
Yeah.
Which hey, parents, do yourself a favor, help the high school coaches out. Look at that calendar before you go spending a bunch and booking a bunch of camps. Also, if you're a rising sophomore, junior, or senior, kind of plan your vacation at the end of the summer, like on your dead week, the 2 dead weeks.
Yep.
Because if you don't, and you start to just say, oh, we're going to go, so school's out, we're going, which I understand. There's the whole family component, but don't also be the person that says, yeah, well, man, like, how do we get recruited? Well, you missed all 8 camps that you should have been at, right? And so, and you probably missed your high school football practices. So
you're missing that. People are out there evaluating you, looking for you. And the worst feeling is when you're going to look for somebody at a particular camp or just with their own team and, they're on vacation. They're in Cancun. It happens way too much.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it's not saying don't go on vacation. It's being judicious with. Yeah. And I understand there's other kids and different plans and there's weddings and things like that. But yeah, if you can avoid it, it's probably to your advantage to avoid it. So unfortunately, like that does happen. And so I know a lot of the really good coaches get their calendars out way in advance. So. Yep. If you're able to.
Another kid is somebody you've worked with a little bit, and I don't know how much you've worked with him. I believe his name is Tyron Williams at Holt. Tavern. That's it.
I have him.
There's Tyron, and then there's Tavern.
Yeah, and I have him as soon as we get done.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I'll see him as soon as I get done.
Incredible athlete. And they have Hoyt Gregory, and Hoyt's the man, and he's entrenched and doing all this. But man, I am so intrigued by Tavern. And what I saw to him, I was intrigued with his athleticism because he's a heck of an athlete.
Yeah,
he's a big time athlete. Testing with elite and that. The 40s there, the verticals there, pro agility. I don't know if you've done the force plates with him or not.
I have not, and we need to.
Yeah,
but he's a kid, and this is a good story, parents, because he's been training as a quarterback, but he came and did 7-on-7 this spring. He played with Midwest Boom. Great kid, had competed his butt off. He played offense and defense as a skill player, so as a receiver and a DB. Okay. He did not play quarterback because knowing what he knows about this coming season, they have a Division I guy at quarterback. So he's going to be used all over the field. So he's making the team player decision. Right?
Yep.
So he is. If I'm a parent, if I'm a coach and I have this young man and his brother on my team, I'm going, hey, they get it because he is preparing for the future He's doing his quarterback training. He's preparing for the future, and then when they need him, right? So say they need him
Step right in. Yep.
for whatever reason, God forbid, he can step in.
Let's just say North Point blows out a lot of teams.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and you do what you're supposed to do. He's
Right.
getting in.
He's getting in.
But he's also going to be part of the reason they're blowing people out.
Right, exactly.
So he'll be on. But so he's doing both. So you can manage, and that just tells me there's some vision going on, right? It's not like very reactive, like, oh, we need to do this now, and you build to it, and so those steps take place well in advance of it occurring. And
that translates to the field. I saw that standing because I was standing right there on the field level with them watching the plays. And you saw that he is very thoughtful and everything he does is planned out. And you can tell he's trained and you can tell that he has a plan and he's out there executing it. And that's why he's doing so well. And that's why he's so intriguing to me because his mindset is exactly what you want. He's on a mission, right?
Yep.
He's on a mission and just a playmaker. And he's like a sponge. He's taking it all in. He's listening to his coaches, after each play, coming back to the huddle, listening to the coaches and just really buying into it. And not everybody does that. You saw a lot of guys down there just hanging out, having a good time. And you see it in every sport and it drives coaches crazy, right? But they're just talking to their buddies. Social event, right? And it's like, and so you walk up to a kid who looks the part and be like, hey, young man, what grade are you? I'm a senior. Well, what are you standing over here in the background, behind everybody?
And a lot of these guys show up. It's just to have, they're looking for
like wearing the jerseys.
Well, they got their guy personally filming them doing it and stuff like that. So they're doing it all for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
I'm all for, hey, have your parents film you. I mean, you need to get filmed.
100%.
Your coaches are filming you.
Yep.
I am of the belief, film and also get what they have on huddle because like sometimes the camera gets screwed up. Sometimes it doesn't work the way it's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterbacks, I love the angle. If you get the rear view angle right from high.
Yep.
That helps a ton from a development standpoint and learning how to read and receivers also for spacing and the defenses. Obviously, you can see kind of who's covering what and who moved prematurely, all that type of stuff. So, but yeah, there's so much young talent, and I think it's very obvious when you see the kids that are training and developing and working at it. Because if they don't, it becomes problematic. When they get in scenarios like we just saw this past weekend, and then they get into the scenario of like, hey, we're hitting each other. Yeah. And like the thing is how many times did you hear stay up? I mean,
stay up,
like somebody gets tackled every single play, right? Right. Like, most guys are wearing shorts, but they're smart enough to have their thigh pads, hip, and have their girdle.
Saw a few guys deplete it. The trader has come out there a couple of times.
Hey, here's the other thing. Stay off the quarterback. If it is not a live game, the rule of thumb is do not hit the quarterback. Yeah. You want to get your butt bounced out of a college practice?
Yeah.
Hit the quarterback. I mean, like they get near him.
That's when the fights start.
You can't like if you get near him, like you watching professional practice, they get near him, like you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So there's too much that can go wrong with a quarterback. And it's not to say they're trying to protect them because they're soft. They're trying to protect them because they're the only person throwing the football, right? And so a lot of time, energy, and money has been invested in that young man at all levels, right? And so if you can, just stay away from him.
Yeah.
And again, it stuff happens, right? Guys get pushed into people. People, don't know the rules, all that type of stuff. But yeah, I think it is fun to get to see these guys. I know a lot of guys are doing 7-on-7. Which is good. It's really good to see. And it's the difference like you see with this high school 7-on-7 for the most part, not all. Most of the teams are playing to install their system and they're not playing to win per se, meaning like they're not running stuff that you're not going to see them run. Like if you see guys running a lot of 2-man and in 7v7, then they better have 4 dogs up front that are getting upfield and rushing, right? And bringing a lot of heat. And so, you don't necessarily see that.
No, they're trying their system. They're trying to evaluate their players that they got. So a lot of that in the joint between CBC and Ritter, right? I mean, Jamarian Parker, they know what they got with him,
Mhm.
right? But they wanted to see their other backs. Manny Ellis looked good out there. Another
Yep.
guy who trains with you, Keon Sloan. I mean, so it's good. Those young guys get an opportunity.
Yeah, their D line looked. I saw some film on it. They looked really good.
Oh, their D line's
Big and strong.
unbelievable.
Charles
You know,
Brooks III
you're
is
talking.
an animal.
He was an animal. Him and Tristan Abram
Yeah.
out there doing their thing. You know, trying to like one up each other a little bit. You know,
Yep.
there's like quiet competition. They get along, but there's like that quiet competition. You know, you get another high level guy you want to show out and show him your thing. But him, Bryce Gray, their nose guard, who's just massive now. He's up to like 291 pounds, 6'1". Just picked up his first offer from Tennessee, first D1 offer from Tennessee State.
There we go.
I mean, he's a guy, and if he was a little taller, he would have everybody after him. But all he does is produce. But still, he's 6'1", 291 nose guard. So, you know, slash
Pretty good size, right?
That
Yeah.
is pretty good size, and he's explosive. He's quick. I think he had something like 13 sacks last year, as you know, playing from that position because he's just so quick and explosive and strong. And so him, you have the Jaquez Felix kid who's 6'3", 275.
Yeah, they're big up
They're
front.
huge up front. You know, Marshawn Ivy, another guy who's
Mhm.
come in train. You know, he's looking good. He's flying all around at linebacker. They're using them as an edge too. I mean, they're gonna be a problem. You know, I mean, you don't want to put the onus on anybody, but I mean,
They'd be an odds-on favorite. I would.
they
think,
gotta
right?
be. They gotta
Right.
be because you know we didn't even mention Carson Boyd.
Yeah,
You know,
that helps having a Division I
it
quarterback.
does help. And Carson really was showing a lot of his athleticism, his speed. I don't think people realize how fast
Oh, he's fast. He can
Carson
run.
is. He
can
can
run.
run, and he was just taking off. You know, he was just doing plays, and
He
and
can
he was
run.
Nigel Gooden, another guy. Here we go, man. It's not. I swear to God, it's not. It is not like pre-planned that we're going to mention these guys, but when you these
You start seeing who stands out.
and
then,
on these
yeah.
really good teams,
Yeah.
Nigel Gooden looking really good.
Yep.
out
He looked
there.
really good at Lindenwood. Like for
looked
a younger
great.
quarterback, he
Yeah.
looked really good. And
Good athlete.
yeah.
Really throwing the ball well.
So you look at all these guys. So let's just say, and I've gotten this question, and I probably should have brought it up earlier. So the class of 26, those guys. So like this past Saturday, the 15th,
at midnight,
it was legal, right? It was legal for the they're on the clock. You probably saw these messages from
right.
if you follow college football teams, you know, 26,
Big
you're on the
guys.
clock.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what's interesting is you know, that's a sign of where you are, right? And some teams are better at it than others. They'll email you or not email you. They'll direct message you a graphic that, you know, it's got your name on it, and then there's also like you know, there's other ways they can communicate with you now because now you're on the clock, like you're legal, and which is good because it's earlier in the cycle. They can actually communicate with guys. If you haven't noticed, everything's pushing up, right? The official visit window pushed up, signing date pushed up. You know, everything's getting pushed up so that it can speed the process along. And so, you know, and I think every time that happens, some good comes from it, some bad comes from it. But if you are getting messages from schools, that doesn't necessarily mean anything more than others. But it's a good sign, right? It means there's somebody's got you on their board. If you're not getting a ton of those, you know, also be proactive, right? Like, I mean, I saw a kid, I don't know who it was a national guy. He tweeted, he said, I didn't have a single graphic sent to me last year, you know, this time when they allowed it. Yeah. And he's like, you know, I think he's going to Penn State or something. So, you know, you look at it from that perspective, you take it with a grain of salt.
Can't let that define your value.
No,
don't
worry
don't
about
live
it.
and die by social media.
But communicate, right? And it's another great idea. Like as you're doing these team camps or 7-on-7, put a little highlight film together, DM a couple coaches, put it on your profile. You'll get that information out there because if you don't, somebody else is going to do it, right? So you want to catch their eye. You're in the business of people evaluating you, so like don't run from it. You know, put those 3 to 4 top plays up. Just put them in there, catch their attention, tag people in it, and see what comes from it. But that knowing how it lines up, and then people will go, well, how does a person in the class of 2027 have an offer already if they can't talk to them?
Or 2028.
2028, right? And so that all comes through communication with their coaches. It's talking, people like myself, yourself, like communicating, messages to people, right? And so like that happens, and so again, it's more legitimate when it happens, after you're in a recruitable period where they can communicate with you, and then it's going to go silent, and then there'll be silent periods, and people will go, well, I'm not hearing from anybody. It's like, well, yeah, you're not allowed to hear from anybody because there's no communication, right? And so and then they control when you can be on campus, when you can't, when they could be off campus. So right now those guys are working. They have camps at their school, and they have camps where they can go to a limited number of days off campus. And so they're very selective with how they do that as a staff. And so you can never read too much into it, because there's a reason why they're able to communicate, and there's also a lot of times there's a reason why they can't communicate, right? So just don't
get too high,
yourself
don't
crazy.
get too low. Right. It just, you know what? Just be even playing with the whole deal. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If you're not one of the guys that got, an offer, if you're not one of the 30 guys that got an offer from a school last week or month that came through town, doesn't mean a thing.
Nope.
Right. It doesn't mean a thing. It's great, when you're on the board and you're 20, 28, 20, 27 kid and you picked up an offer. But I'm telling you what, it's not over till it's over. And we talk about various guys, whether it's Mason Went, whether it's Preston Brown, who suddenly has become in demand, picking up offers from Wyoming and North Dakota State. I mean, it just keeps growing from there. And it's interesting because, I mean, we know a lot of the same mutual people and speak to the same mutual parents. And I just had a parent today thank me, and said to me, everything you said was going to happen has happened. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that. And, and I'm like, I appreciate trying to help.
As if we've seen it before.
Right. Especially when you were about to jump off a bridge because nothing was happening at the moment. You know what I mean?
Well,
that's the worst. But it's good.
It's hard. It is. I get it. Like we've been there. And as much as you and I know about the process, we also have a measured approach that's realistic to know that there's so many moving parts that we know it all works itself out in the end.
It does.
But there are a lot of things that will make you scratch your head.
Yes.
Right? And so that's where it becomes difficult to manage from a parent perspective, and the parents can get upset about it. And the kids, a lot of times the kids are pretty even keel. I mean, sometimes there's a few guys that are over the top and they feel disrespected. But at the end of the day, being a baller and putting high quality film out there and showing up at camps and dominating is how you separate yourself, right? And that's
Correct.
At every level. That's not just the Division I FBS level. They're demanding that at every level. They want guys that want to play, guys that love the game of football, and then guys have the ability to play the game of football. So really focus on the little things. Don't get yourself all caught up in what other guys are doing and what you're not getting.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, there's a lot of people that are going to fabricate stuff as well. There's a lot of offers that you wonder, you're like, oh man, that doesn't really match, right? And so, I would just say, as JP said, when the dust settles, it's all said and done. You'll know where you stand, but you can't. It's not an idle process. You have to take control of it.
Take care of business. Do what you have to do, and in the end, it will work out, and you'll go where you're gonna go. And as we've said before, it's not the end, right?
Nope.
You're on a continuing journey all through college. You might transfer up, you might transfer down. I mean, it's a fluid situation. It's not like back in the day when, you'd go to a school and that was it. That was your lot in life. And you were there for 5 years, you'd redshirt and blah, blah, blah. And that was it. There's still guys who like to hang out there, even though nothing's really going on for them. But the college staffs don't necessarily let them hang out there anymore. It's like, boom, there
is some legislation, rule changes where I think if a guy's a 4-year guy and they clip him, that person still has the right to stay that semester. I think because that was happening and guys were getting it was a bad situation. So like now they can, that's an enforceable rule.
Right.
So, which is tough. And, guys used to like sign their scholarship for that semester or that year and then quit right after it. And it really, I get it. But at the same time, like that's not, for the program, that's not great.
Right.
not great at all.
It's
So there's money that's allocated and there's resources allocated to each individual athlete that's on the roster.
right. So with recruiting, hang in there, because it's going to come. Talent Chandler last year comes to mind, you
Yep.
know.
I use him as an example often.
Perfect example. And I remember having a conversation with his dad, and he just at one point was throwing his hands up, and he's like, "What more can we do?" And he's like, "Well, I'm just not going to even think about it anymore." And boom, here it goes. It happens. And there's guys in this year's class who are like that. I know we talked about him a lot. Mason Went. He kind of to me is this year's Talon Chandler. If whoever's going to give him the chance. I mean, I just watched his video from his clips from Kent State Mega Camp.
Yep.
I mean, my gosh, you want a 6'4", 300-pound guy with that energy.
Some guy tried to bull rush it. He just stymied him. I saw
Yeah.
pretty funny. Yeah. But that whole O-line class, I know we beat the drum on
Clark Kent.
You got Stephen Mites.
Stephen Mites.
Another
Thank you very
guy,
much.
like-
Wait a minute. Let me mention that name again. Stephen Mites. I got a message last week. He's like, said, I was mentioning the guys.
you
I
got derailed though. Then
I
you start talking about something else.
No. I just want to make sure that I mention that name because I got a message last week that I didn't include his name. So I just want to make sure I got him 3 times. This like Beetlejuice. So
yeah, like he's got a Missouri State offer, which that's a big offer.
It is good. Austin Pay.
They like Missouri State has like recircled the wagons around like how they're going to attack going from FCS to FBS. And so, he's a guy that he possesses the size, the ability, the movement. I mean, he's athletic.
I mean, he could play Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
He could play.
Yeah, he's
Iowa
got plenty
State.
of size.
Plenty of size. He's got the athleticism, a self-made guy, just like Mason.
Yep.
Both guys that you train, and I don't know whether you guys, beat that into their heads or they just buy
I think
into
it's
it.
collective, like within the group. And I think it's what I love. And O-line are a little different than all the other positions.
Yeah.
It becomes like a brotherhood, and they really respect each other.
Yeah.
And they pull for each other. It is a very unique,
great camaraderie.
Yeah, it's cool. I love it. And then they go to these camps and beat the crap out of other kids.
Yeah. And they're rooting for each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool. There's no jealousy, I mean, all those guys, because all those guys, I mean, at the KC varsity at Howell.
Yep.
I mean, how many of those dudes were competing for the same belt?
Yep.
Yeah,
then going after each other but having fun and
having fun
at the same time.
Carter Burdell,
he had a good, really good camp out at
Mike Cunningham. Yeah. At East Central. Yeah. He had a great one. And just the leadership that he won't let guys who like wonder or they lose their focus. He's like, hey, he's a great leader. I don't know, is he a captain for them? I would imagine so. It's got to be.
Has to be.
Him and Hoyt and Hoyt's little brother's playing ball.
Yeah,
now.
how about that?
Yeah,
next generation.
I took his first photo.
Yeah, that's such a cool experience for those guys too. Because all those little guys are sitting up in the stands. Like my son, he's sitting up at Parkway West.
Yeah.
He knows all those guys. Like he's looked up to them. So I
thought I'd see him down there.
Oh, he was there. He's in the stand just sitting there watching. And so what's cool about it is that, if you train enough and you go to enough things, you're part of a junior program that's, got a family type environment, you're like the next man in line. So like kids know you, they want to give you trouble. Like it's like the little brother deal, right? So that they're messing with you. But I think that's part of this system of how you build a football community, how you build a program. And I think what's cool is you see some of these programs that are surging in areas that are not really a growth area. So something's going on in the football. Like on the western, like the reaches of St. Louis County, there's a lot of people moving and a lot of new growth. Correct. So you would expect the surge, right?
And it's happening.
Full teams, and it is.
Warrenton. I mean,
you go to St. Louis County, more mature locales like, Parkway West. Let's just use them as an example because that's who hosted it.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Duncan was really excited that they have 3 full freshman JV varsity.
Yeah.
Now, what a lot of kids don't realize is back when I was in high school, you were in high school, we had a freshman team, a sophomore team, a JV team, and a varsity team.
Right.
There was that many kids playing football. And a different time, different place. There wasn't a movie called Concussion and all that stuff that came along.
Yeah.
But but the helmet technology, I would argue, is so much better than what it was back then.
Oh, without a doubt.
The helmets we were using, my God.
Yeah.
Weight was not a consideration.
Were they real even?
Safety ratings were not a consideration.
I was gonna say, were
You
they?
know, like, oh my God, I got hit so hard by actually he's a coach. He was at Washington last year, Coach Inge.
Yeah.
William Inge. I was a sophomore. I got hit. We were playing Kirkwood. And
Oh, he's a big dude.
and I got
Physical dude.
I got hit on the sideline, and I turned around and I was walking, and someone was like, "Hey, you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And they're like, "Your face mask is
Sideways.
knocked out of you. It got knocked out of the channels, right?" And it
Yeah.
was like bent. So yeah, every time I see him, I bring that up. He was at Washington. I think he might have gone to Alabama at one point. He was hired at Alabama. I don't know. I saw some movement with some of those other staff guys that were at Washington, but yeah, local Kirkwood guy. And,
Yeah.
really good guy. We got a lot of guys coaching football. Hey, we do need to mention two people.
Yep.
UFL championship. Daniel Isom with the Birmingham Stallions,
Oh, yeah,
guy
nice.
that
Former SLU.
we've trained a bunch. He still trains at our facility. He won the championship, so he's a guy that's spent some time in the NFL.
Mhm.
Hopefully, he's able to stay healthy and then jump. I think he'll be a guy that has a shot. He had a really good preseason 2 years ago and then had an injury bug, but now he's proven himself. And then Mark Lillibridge, who many of you guys know as Bridge. He worked at Elite for many years, and he's the GM for the San Antonio Brahmas. And what a story. You know, love seeing that he's making his way back into professional football. He did a lot of great stuff with us, but you could tell that he would write reports on pro football. Like, pro football is his thing, right? And that's what he loves doing. And not to say he doesn't know college and high school, but his focus really, if you talk to him, is pro. And that's what I think is so unique about our organization. If you look at the guys that have come through, whether they're players, whether they're people working in our front office, the football IQ that's walked through the doors and the connections that are in that league of being like a pro scout, a pro GM, an NFL, whatever it might be, assistant to the GM. Those are guys that have come through our facility, and we have connections, right?
Yeah.
And guys, as this college football landscape changes, and there's GMs and people like that, we're going to have a lot of people representing our coaching tree, if you will, in that. And
I was going to say,
we're connected
guys
to
there.
like we're connected to them, JP.
Yeah,
and I think it's the highest compliment you can get as a coach and as a scout, that the people you're helping end up going into the game and making an impact.
Oh, you got guys there now. You can see they're that next generation. I don't know. Last week we were talking about where's the next generation of coaches from. But, at the CBC Ritter joint, Key was there.
Yep.
Shadowing Coach Gage.
Yep.
And it's like, it's great to see. And he's a guy, you can see him on that trajectory.
Yeah, he'll be a college coach.
Oh, without a question.
And because he's asking the right questions, he's around the right people.
Yep.
And
he's investing in it.
That's what's so cool.
He lives it. Yeah.
Hey, another last one before we get out of here. I got a message. I saw it on Facebook yesterday. Thomas Morton, who was a quarterback at Westminster, and he played tight end as well. And then he went to Southern Miss. So he, a longtime trainee, great guy. He was there around the time of Evan Johnson and Brendan Bognar, and really just a good kid. Has coached. He's rising through the ranks. He's been at Auburn. He's been at Troy, Southern Miss, and now he's back at Auburn. So I saw yesterday that he's doing a quarterback camp with the college, all the players and the head the lead OC / quarterback coach. He's the assistant, and they're putting on a quarterback camp. And I'm like, full circle moment. The guy that came in, who's training, who was just a diligent student, was always there, always wanted to learn, and now you see he's a part of a major SEC program, and that just makes us feel like super excited and very grateful to be a part of that story. And his dad is a longtime NFL pro scout with the Rams. Could not be a nicer guy. I mean, he's got some war stories, man. I mean, he's got some really good stories about finding guys and the process of how they establish who's who and how they place value and who they're going to draft. But to see Thomas in that environment is awesome. I mean, just so excited for him.
Well, that's great. Good news. I guess we'll end on a high note with that stuff. We could keep going.
Keep going.
We
Yeah.
could keep going, but we'll just really
Gotta
get
go
in,
train.
really get into the weeds.
I gotta go
Exactly.
train.
We'll start talking about odd incoming freshmen for Parkway West or Northwest High School and stuff like that. That people are like, huh?
Clayton High School, Clayton Brentwood, right?
Clayton Brentwood.
Yeah,
That's
they were there.
interesting. Demetrius. We're going to keep going. Demetrius
Man.
Thompson, man.
Look out for that one.
He's a dude.
Look out for him.
He's a definite dude. That's a whole interesting dynamic with what they got going on there. But just a ton of talent. Wes Knuckles from Northwest.
Yep.
Just a guy. He might need an extra year or two to develop.
Stud.
But just athletically, just off the charts.
Yep.
Just crazy good. So. But it goes by fast. Fastest hour football talk on the planet right here. Football 360 show. Where can everybody find you? I think everybody knows where to find you, but just go ahead, tell them.
Elite Football on Twitter.
Look at
Elite
that.
Football Academy on Instagram.
Our big time producer, Pro Joe Pro. I
There
still
he
can't
is.
get it right.
Pro
Just-
Joe.
Pro Joe. Is that it? Pro Joe? I was gonna say his real name, but Pro Joe. Hitting us up. What did he say?
You're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. Don't do that. Don't do that.
We're gonna make him come on.
Look at that. Looking on this on the screen. We're gonna make him come out on a helmet. He's shy.
Yeah.
He's a shy guy.
Yes, we'll get a shield.
We'll have him come
Goes
on
through
talk
that.
music
Yes.
and stuff like that. But Pro Joe, man, putting all of our socials and where to reach us, everything like that on the screen, so we don't have to. And we appreciate it as always, man. Everybody have yourself a good, safe week. It's hot out there. Hydrate, and stay safe. Have fun. Enjoy if you're on vacation. And we will talk to you next week. Everybody stay safe. See ya.